Tonight we're talking about learning how to enjoy the process instead of just surviving it, right? So the biggest thing is, what if suffering was like never a part of this diet at all? Like, what if that wasn't something in your mind that you thought was going to be a part, right? So we'll start with a couple questions. How many times have you dieted in the past? And like, these are rhetorical, you guys can answer them if you want, but like, how many times in the past have you dieted and like started over, right? How many times did you hit like the beginning of a week after you had a poor like weekend and said like, hey, this week is going to be different. And then ultimately, like, how many times did it work, in the past? Like, how many times were you able to like make this an impactful change that stuck around for a long period of time, right? And the truth is, the reason nothing ever sticks is not because like you don't have the right plan or the right discipline, right? It's because the cyclical thoughts around what we're doing. So before we get into like, some of the nuances of like how we make it fun and stuff, I want to break down really like what happens, So the goal of this isn't to talk about like clean eating and stuff. It's to talk about the approach that we use and like why that matters so much, right? So you guys can actually respond to this one. Raise your hand if you've lost 15 or 20 pounds before this program and then you gained it back more than once. This is everybody's first shot at weight loss ever, except for Dustin. I'll take it as you guys just don't want to engage, but I'm sure you guys have. I've talked to you guys all on these calls and stuff, and I know. So, the goal here is that there is some type of a cycle working, and like pretty much every time I can fit this into a call or a meeting, I'm going to try to fit it in, because it is the most important part about this, is that we recognize the cycle that we are operating in. Everybody's in one, right? Their cycle might be 6 months. Yours might be 2 months. Yours might be like, 4 days out of 7 every single week, as far as how long you hang on before you say like, I don't think this is working, and then you bail, right? So most people don't lack education, right? Like everybody on this call right now, other than maybe like Jorge, because he just started, but you guys have more information around macros and stuff like that than the average person, right? It's not that you lack the info. It's not that you lack the right plan and stuff. And most people are able to lose weight, right? Like we talk about, like I just asked, how many times were you able to like lose weight and gain it back? Or how many times were you able to lose weight, but you ended up gaining it back? It's not because of discipline. It's because every plan required that you do something that wasn't sustainable long-term, right? Like, you go into a dieting phase and you start cutting stuff out. I'm cutting carbs down. I'm going to stop eating at 4 p.m. I'm going to eat 1 meal a day. I'm going to do keto with no carbs. I'm going to do like, whatever, Weight Watchers. But there's always things that make it not sustainable, right? How do you apply this when you're on the go, when you're on a trip? What happens when you go to an event and like keto doesn't fit, right? What happens when you go to an event, but you eat 1 meal a day at like 2 p.m. and this event's at 6 p.m. at night? What happens then? And this is what breaks everybody down, right? So we'll use like a fictitious example. This is a real person, but let's say Sarah, right? Sarah's done keto, Weight Watchers, intermittent fasting, juice cleanses, loses weight every single time she does it. That further reinforces in her mind that this stuff is working, right? But every time she gains it all back, plus more. And the reason isn't because of discipline. It's because the plan that she's following isn't a sustainable plan, right? 75 hard is only to be done for 75 days, right? So there is nothing long-term past that. Nobody's come up, you think somebody would monetize it by now, but nobody's come up with a post 75 hard like plan yet, 75 hard plus the other, 200 and whatever. No, 290 something days. So it wasn't that you're failing at the diet. The diet is failing you, right? Like as far as you being able to hold this long-term, you just didn't have the right structure set up as far as, and the right thought process on what you're doing. But at the end of the day, it all came down to the fact that you're suffering. You went into this hard, 1,000%. I'm going to the gym every day like everybody does on January 1st. People go from 0 to 1,000 and like that's not sustainable, right? Like you don't even have that much time. Like you're going to the gym every single day because you just signed up, but like you can't sustain it because you don't have that amount of time. So the plan was flawed from the beginning, right? And then most people have the underlying belief that the second that they go off the plan, it's over, right? Like, I was dialed in, but because of the last 6 times that you did this, right? And like, had that first cupcake and then you went off the rails, somehow you convince yourself to have this cupcake this time, right? And then as soon as you have it, you have all of these different feelings going on inside your body to where you feel exactly the same way you felt last time. And then you just kind of go like, this is over, right? Like the same thing happened last time. I knew it. and then you let yourself off the hook and you proceed going back, to what you were doing before, and ultimately we're recreating this cycle, right? It's the same hamster wheel that like the diet industry is built around. Like the goal here is to fix you, but not permanently, right? Because if I fix you permanently, then you don't need any more help, more supplements, more hormones, like more anything. And like then a lot of people lose a lot of money. So the goal here is to kind of keep you on the wheel going and going and going and going, right? All right, the psychology of good and bad foods. So food isn't moral. A cookie has never done like anything like right or wrong to you, right? I mean, maybe in the mirror, but like to you personally, like we look at cookies and we're like, damn, those are like so bad for me, but they're so good, right? We legitimately say those words out loud. I've said them, I think, and I've heard people around me say them. Man, like this cupcake is like so bad, but it's so good at the same time, So like we attach all of these thoughts to it, right? But we all know now that food just breaks down to like the macros in it and stuff like that, right? So protein, fats, and carbs, the timing of them. Is it the best concoction to eat a cupcake? Probably low protein, very high in fat, also high in carbs, right? We know that. It's not the best concoction. Is it going to derail an entire diet? Is it the systematic breakdown of your fat loss phase or your reverse diet or your maintenance phase or anything like that because you had one cupcake? Absolutely not. And if you run this process long enough, get through the reverse, you'll be able to eat a cupcake and you won't have any. It becomes scary because you'll be able to eat a cupcake with like no damage whatsoever, and then you're like, I wonder how many cupcakes I can eat, and that's where the problem starts to derail down a different path. But you'll start to feel so empowered that like food's not bad, right? Like as long as I just think of it like. Probably the worst example, but it's the first one that popped to mind. Think of it like cigarettes, right? If I smoked one cigarette once a week for 20 years, I'm probably not going to die, right? But if I smoke 20 cigarettes, 20 is not even a lot, I don't think. But say I smoke 50 cigarettes a day, every single day, I'm probably going to have some huge health ramifications, right? And we know that about cigarettes, right? Like you would never think like, if you smoke one cigarette, like you're going to die. But when it comes to food, that's the way we structure our brain. We go, like everything's going so good. If I just eat that one cupcake, like it's over for me, right? We have to shift that mindset. It's not going to kill you, right? Like you're allowed to do it, but at the same time, it's the psychology around it. Like why? Why do it right now? Why not, like if you weren't planning it out, why eat that cupcake right now? Is it because of guilt from like your friends around you? Is it just because like you have a crazy craving that like you really weren't satisfying because you didn't plan your meals out the right way to hit that? Is it like, in a social setting, you feel like you should, like, because everybody else is, it's your kid's birthday and like, they're like, are you going to eat this cake, mom? Right? And so you feel like you need to eat it. I totally get it. I would eat it too. We just have to figure out the why and then make decisions around that. The worst possible thing that we can do is continually operate in a cycle of like subconscious decision making. That is the biggest thing. If you guys take anything from this, subconscious decision making is the reason we end up overweight. It's the reason that we cancel or quit diets. It's the reason that we end like relationships and friendships and stuff like that too. Subconscious decision making, right? Like we start to feel one certain way and then we slowly drift away from whatever it is that is causing us to feel that way. And we'll do the same thing with food continually, right? There's no bad foods. There's foods that fit the structure and foods that don't fit the structure as often. That is the difference, right? A piece of pizza, if you eat it, it's not a character failure on your part, right? It is a systematic use of carbs, proteins, and fats that doesn't align with what you had planned that day. That is it, right? Think about like, people really beat themselves up about this stuff, but like I would say probably more than 50% of people on this call, if they miss their alarm in the morning, they'll just go, damn. Like, all right, try again tomorrow. It wouldn't be the end of the world, but like when it comes to like, I had a plan of what I was gonna eat, but like I ate one piece of pizza. They were like, I'm a complete piece of crap. I can't believe I did this. Like I messed the whole thing up. Like, and they shame themselves. But like, for stuff that matters, like your alarm going off so you can make it to school and work and stuff on time, we don't apply the same kind of like stress on ourselves about it. Cheat meals imply you're doing something wrong, right? I use that term too a lot, but it's not a term that we should use. It's more like structuring, the day around a certain meal, like, or eating off the plan, right? Something like that. Cheat meal makes it sound like you're cheating. It attaches shame and guilt and stuff like that to what we're doing. So cheating becomes mostly psychological. when the plan isn't built on deprivation, right? So like in this arena here, we're not killing ourselves. We're not depriving ourselves of food to where like I was on a diet once, long story short, one of my many things that I did called a PSMF. You guys might have heard me say it before. It's a protein sparing modified fast. So it means you only eat protein for 30 days, right? So I ate 800 calories a day in 200 grams of protein, 0 fat, 0 carbs for 30 days. If you think your stomach was messed up, like, trust me, just straight protein for 30 days. There was times where I thought I was going to pass out. But like I still worked out. It was coupled with that, and like I got super shredded, but it wasn't a sustainable thing. If you think I'm lying, look it up. It's a PSMF. Don't do it if you look it up. It's not good. I don't care what ChatGPT tells you. It's not healthy. Don't do it. So nobody cheats on a life they love. You only cheat on a prison sentence, right? So there is no reason to cheat if you can build anything that you want into this plan, right? If, for instance, you go, if you have these thoughts like, man, I know I'm going to break at some point. There's no way I can keep up with this. I got this event coming up. Then just plan like the Christmas dinner method around that event, right? Now you have a plan. I don't care if it's a shitty plan and like, it's not going to like necessarily take you towards your goals. If you do it every day, like you guys have heard me say before, you're on a different plan. But as far as, just doing it once for an event, now you have some kind of like, it sounds bad, but like a goal set up, right? Hey, I don't need to cheat. I know like next Saturday I'm going and I'm going to do this, right? Then you look forward to it, you set it up, and you're going to appreciate it so much more. I was just talking to somebody else in the program about this a while ago. They stopped drinking as much. So like then every once in a while they'll go out and have drinks and they like appreciate it so much more, as opposed to like when they were drinking like every single day, like casually, socially, stuff like that. All right, hypothetical scenario, right? 41-year-old female, terrified of carbs for 6 years, avoided bread, pasta, rice, anything that's white. You guys have all heard that, but still couldn't lose weight, right? This isn't really hypothetical, by the way. But, we take this program, we introduce structured carb timing and like workout timing around those carbs and stuff. And then she lost 28 pounds. She was eating pasta like twice a week, which isn't like, not a big deal. But a lot of people have like this idea, rice is okay, but like pasta is bad for you, right? So the pasta wasn't the problem. It was like the fear of pasta, right? That actually was something that we had to discuss and like work through, that she could actually eat it, right? Because to her, it was like something bad in her mind. So you just have to think of like, what foods are you still, like even at this process, right? What foods are you afraid of? What foods like to you are you still like, man, this is bad. Like if I ever want to be in shape, I shouldn't have this, right? You got to start like identifying those, what's going on. What would it mean to you if you were told that this food instantly like would actually help your success? So if I told you right now, if you were like, and I've said this to people, I don't know, hundreds of times at this point, to where they were like, oh my God, I just want to eat a bagel so bad. And I was like, all right, let's do a refeed day, right? So we're going to, do X. I gave them this whole formula. And I'm like, they're like, no, it's fine. It's fine. Like, I don't need it. And I'm like, no, it'll probably help you. And they're like, no, I don't want to like go off the plan or anything. I'm like, I'm giving you the plan. It's my plan. So this is the new plan. And it actually helped ultimately because that carb boost crushes stress hormones, helps push out water retention. So when somebody's really like stalling out in weight loss, a lot of times refeed meals like that can help. So, I challenge you guys to look at like what foods in your mind are just so bad, right? And then from there, figure out like, for instance, like let's say Jess, because she's right next to me in the square. Let's say Jess goes, I know like cupcakes, I used to eat them all the time and like, but they're so bad for you. There's no way somebody who's in phenomenal shape could eat a cupcake, right? And then you go, but Matt said that I got to think about this, right? That's what I think, cupcakes. And then my next question is, how often do you think you could eat that cupcake and not have any damage to your metabolism whatsoever, right? And then it becomes, all right, so now it's not a bad food. It's just a food that I shouldn't be eating every single day, right? Then I have the fundamental belief, because I just thought about it, that I could eat a cupcake every 2 weeks. Well, I don't even, it sounds crazy, but I eat a cupcake every 2 weeks, and like, then you do it, right? You structure that into the plan, and then all of a sudden, you don't care about cupcakes anymore. You're not scared of them. They're not this glorious end result that like people who don't live this crazy lifestyle get to have. You don't care about it anymore. And now, when your friends are like, oh my God, like how do you live like this? You're never gonna be able to eat a cupcake. You're like, yo, I eat cupcakes like every other week, right? That's the goal of this. Identify where your cyclical, psychological problems around dieting are stuck, and then just literally just take them apart. If you guys got questions at any point, just jump in and say anything. Restriction creates obsession, right? So, and that's a tough one, right? Because like there's point in times where like we bring food down to where people feel restricted, right? But it's a short amount of time with, a lot of results typically. So that builds momentum and it keeps momentum. But any type of diet to where you go in so hard right from the get-go and it's not a slow progression into it, you feel like you're just losing so much. And eventually, like we talk about this thing, I'm not going to go through the whole thing again, but as the weight of the amount of weight you want to lose, as you lose it, that starts to get lighter as far as the pain that you have from it. And then what you're giving up when you're in such a crazy restrictive diet to where, you can only eat certain things that have like a point equivalent to them and stuff like that, or things that you order online from like a meal prep company, you start to go, this is crazy. Like I can't do this forever, right? So the goal of this whole program is that every time you have that thought, I don't know, nothing's ever sustainable long term, that you then can go, but why can't I sustain this, right? Like why can't I do this forever? Why can't I loosely have a good idea of like what I'm eating every day? Why can't I preferentially eat high protein? Why can't I eat carbs, separated from fats and meals and stuff, and find things I actually love and get the results at the same time? So restriction equals obsession, which typically equals caving, binging, guilt, and then the person typically will cycle backwards and restrict harder, and then we start to cycle over and over, right? And it's not a week-based cycle. It's pretty like predictable human psychology. The diet creates a binge. The binge creates shame and guilt and stuff like that. And ultimately, the restriction side of this does help a little bit, but the binge does so much damage that's why we effectively gain weight every time this happens on the way up. And people are like, I don't understand. Like, I'm so good for 5 days out of the week, and I only binge 2 days a week. And it's not even a real binge. Like I only eat this and fish and I hear all this stuff. And, but those 2 days are so calorie intensive that they negate the crazy restriction on the other days. But because you're restricted for 5 days, you feel like you're living in this prison all the time, right? All right. Structure beats elimination, right? So the biggest goal here is to structure, like I was just talking about, the stuff you actually want to eat, make it happen, right? If you come into this program, and I typically put the same foods down. I just adjust the amounts for people when they start because I want to make it so simple. But, like you're eating the egg whites with the bread and stuff, right? And then you hear about this French toast and you're like, I don't want to delve down like that rabbit hole yet. Take the time and effort and try new things, right? If you can structure in foods that will crack all these cravings and stuff that you have to where you feel like this is amazing, then you won't feel like you're eliminating whole food groups from your diet. You won't feel like there's things that are bad that you have to eliminate, right? All right, emotional eating versus strategic inclusion, right? That's gonna be the big deal here, right? So most of us who try to be healthy and try to eat clean, most of the bad eating is done out of either emotion or societal guilt and stuff like that. That's pretty much it, right? So what we have to do is we have to shift that from emotional decision-making at the moment. I've said this a million times. You guys go out to dinner and you're like, I'm gonna try to be good. You already know you're not gonna, you're not. There's nothing to eat that's good there. You're gonna go out and you're gonna be like, I'm just gonna have one chip. Nobody's ever had one chip in the history of society. Then you ate the entire tortilla bowl just to start, right? And then you're like, well, no, I just messed up. I just won't count this one meal. And then you go down this rabbit hole, right? Why not put a little bit of effort into it? If you know where you're going, look at the menu, plan something out, go in with a game plan, right? And for the people who think that sounds crazy, right? It sounds crazy that I have to think about a menu ahead of time, right? I think it's crazy to live in a body that you hate and not do anything to change it. So if it takes me 5 minutes to look at a menu ahead of time, right? And I get to keep looking the way that I do, and I get to go out and eat dinner, that is a win-win for me. I think a lot of times we just society has a way of twisting these things in our mind to make it seem like what we're doing is stupid. We're goal-centered, goal-focused, but at the same time, we're trying to knock off all the cravings. We're still eating out. We're not living in our house like hermits. So we're getting the best of both worlds here. All right. The goal was never to just lose weight. The goal is to become someone who doesn't need to continually start this process over and over and over, right? So the one phrase that I always like to say, and I want to stick with you guys, is, consistency beats perfection. And it sounds like something that should be on a plaque, like hanging in like a gym office or something. Mara said, I love looking at the menus first, bonus if there's picks, otherwise I hate being put on the spot. Yeah, it sucks because, especially as a guy, because like everybody's like, you go first. And I'm like, no, ladies first. Anyway, back to what I was saying. The goal was never to lose weight. The goal was to become somebody who didn't need to continually start this process over, right? So I want you guys to figure out why you deviated in the past, right? Or even on this program. If you've fallen off a couple times, like what is the psychology around that, right? And I had a conversation recently with a client to where, the actual words that they used was, I didn't realize like telling you that I cheated on the diet was going to turn into a thesis on like food psychology, right? And I was like, well, you joined the wrong program then, sir, because that is what we do here. Like we crack into the thought processes around what is happening and we try to figure out like how do we rewire our brain to win, right? If we've been people who have failed like me more times than I can count for decades, how do we rewire our brain to win consistently long term when most of society doesn't? And if we can do that, then it's a game changer, right?